Are we up there? There we are. All right. Good evening, everyone. Folks joining us online as well as folks joining us in the room. We always appreciate that. I would like to call to order the Hamilton Select Board meeting of Monday, November 4th at 7:01 p.m. We will do a roll call vote because we have an online member. So, Tom, we'll start with you.
Tom Myers here. Sorry for being online. I got the kids tonight.
You know what? Family first, Tom.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy here.
Bill Wilson here.
Caroline Beaulieu here. Thank you so much, ma'am. All right. We will kick things off with our normal announcements of board and committee openings. As Tom has just shown, you too can juggle multiple responsibilities, including a board or committee opening, and still serve the town of Hamilton in any of the following ways. The Conservation Commission has 3 openings. We are really hoping some folks can hop on that board. That's a very important one in the town. The Council on Aging has 2 associate openings. The Cultural Council has 1 opening. The Finance and Advisory Committee has 1 associate opening. Wouldn't you like to see how all the money works in town? The Hamilton Development Corporation has 1 opening for a 3-year term, and the Historic District Commission, 2 openings for 3-year terms, 2 openings for 2-year terms. 1 must be a resident of the Historic District, and 1 must be a resident realtor. And we have 1 at-large opening on the Human Rights Commission. If you're interested in joining any board or committee in town, please reach out to Joe, and he can help you with that. We look forward to it. Next, we will move on to our select board and town manager reports. I will start online. Tom, do you have any reports for us?
I will just give a quick update on the event yesterday. So I was fortunate enough to attend an event in Hamilton yesterday where we welcomed Senator Elizabeth Warren, and we had Representative Kasner there as well. Sort of a get out the vote event where we had some remarks from Senator Warren, from Senator Kasner, and then a whole bunch of folks went out and canvassed the neighborhood. So a really, really great event. Some great commentary from our representatives on what they're hoping to accomplish in another term if elected, and what they're going to accomplish for Hamilton, especially around federal funding towards support for infrastructure. There's a lot of talk about our water systems and how they need upgrades and how there could be federal support and federal funding for that type of infrastructure. So just overall, a really great event. I was happy to attend and support folks getting out the vote. So there's some pictures that I can certainly share if people are interested.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bill at the end.
Got nothing to add today.
Nothing to add. Perfect. Rosie, anything from you today?
Yeah, a few things. I'll just give a general overview. I attended a meeting with a few of the Gordon Conwell abutters last week, and we have another sort of all abutter meeting scheduled for this Wednesday. Looking forward to talking with the abutters and trying to understand their position regarding the transfer of apartments to a private party. The ZBA is chugging along at status quo, nothing exciting at their meeting this month. The COA continues to be a vibrant part of the community, lots of things going on there, and if you're over 60 and interested, they have a Facebook page and a website, and there are lots of really good activities going on there. The Conservation Commission, unfortunately, has had a turnover in their leadership, and this is something we will talk about a little bit later during our discussion of support for boards and committees. So that's it, and in a nutshell. And then just one other thing, Peter Phippen from the Essex Select Board contacted me about a project that he's involved with the Select Board in Essex, Town, the Tobacco Watershed Association, and the state is working together to identify the causes of some problems at Tobacco Lake and ultimately restore and protect the Great Marsh. And in fact, Dave Lash is here tonight and will speak to us upon invitation to the podium here regarding that project. So that's my report.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bill, anything from you tonight?
Quickly, the schools are, for the elementary school in the schematic design phase still. This week is a big week, though. They're going to do some submissions to some estimators to get some solid bids on the cost of the schools. With that, they'll also use that submission to get the final reimbursement rate from the MSBA. So the start of some budgeting and reimbursement rates, which we should hear back from around December on those numbers, and obviously come April, it'll go in front of the town and get voted on to prove first and foremost, but then secondly to fund the difference between the total budget and the reimbursement costs. So that's going on. Let's see, they did reach a tentative agreement, the district with the teachers union, so that's a positive thing. That's been going on for a good part of 6 months. I believe. I did see some emails as well on the schools about the roof. Just to be clear, they were invited only, no funding for the school roof. So I think early January, the MSBA will come in and look at the school and offer some solutions. And they're invited in the program, and it'll go through a long process before any grant funding would be authorized. HDC has not met since their very detailed update late October. They do meet this Wednesday, however, and I know they're going to speak some more about form-based code and things of that, and possibly unbuckling that piece in the warrant article. So
Yep.
That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. Just two quick reminders. The first is that tomorrow is Election Day. I know we have a ton of folks who have voted by mail or voted early, which is great. But just a reminder to everybody that at the end of the day, we're all friends and neighbors. And so a lot of work has gone in with the town clerk and with our volunteers to make voting accessible and easy for folks in town. So everybody, bring their best selves to the polls tomorrow and keep it respectful and keep it happy. And then another small reminder that it is Leaves on the Ground season, which when you have children at home, makes it easy because you can send them out there. But if you do have elderly or alternatively abled neighbors, just to keep an eye out for folks, make sure walkways are clear. If you can lend a hand to neighbors to help them with leaves and certainly snow as we come along. It is that time of year when not everybody is able to get out there and create accessible spaces around their yards and lawns. So if you can pitch into a neighbor, certainly do. I'll send my 11-year-old, but he will just jump into the piles that have been created, making massive messes. All right. Anything from you, sir?
I'd just add on the election, tomorrow is expected to be a very busy day at the polls. According to the town clerk today, there's already been about 40% of the voters in town have voted, but they're expecting close to 95% voter participation this year, which would beat the 2020 election, which saw about 90%. So you're still looking at several thousand people looking to vote tomorrow at the rec center behind us. And so, as Caroline said, it's going to be busy. Just come prepared. Please be patient. The volunteer election workers will be working their best to get you through as quickly and efficiently as possible. Also, just for folks to know, it's the start of budget season. We've sent out our budget message that was approved by the Select Board and the FinCom to department heads, and we're looking for submission from department heads of the 2026 capital budget requests so that we can get those out to Capcom by the end of the week. And so we're getting started on planning for FY26 fiscal year.
I see here, is this?
Oh, yeah, so, that's a good point, it is there. I also want to make sure the board knows that you've been invited to participate in Veterans Day services at the American Legion Post on School Street on November 11th. Coffee is at 8, breakfast is at 8:30, there'll be a speaker at 9. And then at 10:45, the Legion will form up in front of the town hall and march to the cemetery where the 11 o'clock ceremony will take place. The annual 11 o'clock Veterans Day ceremony will take place. We are asking if you could please let me know so that I could let the organizers know if you plan to attend breakfast so that they can have breakfast for you. I'm got a little check sheet here, so if you let me know before the end of the night, I can let them know if you'll be able to participate. It's always a fun event. It's a good way to honor our veterans and thank them for their service. So.
Awesome. All right, next up, we have public comment. As a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes for folks either here in the room or online on topics that are not currently on the agenda. If you would like to add comments to something on the agenda, we ask that you please wait and make those comments in due course. And as a general rule, we do not respond to public comment, but is there anybody in the room or online who'd like to make a comment? All right. With that, we will move to our consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. Approve temporary signs for ECTA road race at Patton Park, approve Ed Fund tree sale at Patton Park, and approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2024 Select Board meeting. Unless there's a request to pull anything out of the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Perfect. Any discussion or anything? The only thing I would say, we said this last year, is the good news is the trees sold quickly. The bad news is sometimes the signage and the stuff lingers. Just make sure we're,
Make sure we get the sign down as soon as.
yeah, get everything sort of picked up
Yep.
when it, perfect. All right, I will take a roll call vote. Tom Myers.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, yes.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye. All right, look at us rolling along 2 minutes early into the agenda. It never happens. First up on the agenda is discuss the use of town funds to study Alewife Brook and surrounding watershed in collaboration with the town of Essex with Dave Lash of the Chabaco Lake and Watershed Association. Discussion. Come on up.
Wonderful.
Glad to have you. Just state your name and who you are and
Yep. Dave Lash, 73 Lakeshore Avenue. I'm with the Chabaco Lake and Watershed Association.
welcome.
Thank you. We have a funding request tonight. This-
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Tom, I wasn't
Thank you.
anticipating someone being present electronically, but I'll send this out electronically as well. David, I see you on the Zoom. Nice to see you.
Especially in that very fancy sweater. So nice to see pattern. All right. Oh, look at this.
We just had our community forum, so all of this is hot off the presses for the community, and I thought I'd give a very quick overview for you.
Perfect.
I don't know if the camera can see that.
I don't know if it's tracking. Can it track over to a speaker over there?
We can switch cameras, I think. HW Cam, can you pick up the speaker?
There he is, he's
There he
on.
is.
Oh,
he
there you go.
He's on.
Wow. Super. So as I said, I'm just going to start with the bottom line, which is a funding request to the town of Hamilton for $15,000 this year and $15,000 next year to undertake the design phase of work that has been going on now for 3 years. Next year's funding would support the 4th year of this process. So what I want to do is just step back, give you a really quick overview of why we're here, what the problem is, and where we think the solution lies. I'm tonight with 3 other people from the Lake and Watershed Association. Adam Barrett is from Essex. He's one of our Essex representatives. Sue McLaughlin from Hamilton, and Denise Kelly from Hamilton.
Thank you.
So Chabaco is 209 acres. The association was started 40 years ago next year when an invasive weed or plant found itself in the lake and quickly took over a large part of the lake. And trying to find a solution for that led to a diagnostic study that the 2 towns participated in. And we tried a rather unsuccessful attempt at some hydro raking. We eventually lost control of the invasive, but the Lake Association has been an instrumental group to coordinate efforts to provide for the welfare of the lake. And then gradually, over time, it became clear that only looking at the lake without looking at the watershed wasn't really going to produce good long-term results. So we added the overall watershed to our work. So as this first poster says, the lake is 132nd largest in the Commonwealth. But if you take out all the reservoirs that are in undeveloped land and don't experience the same kinds of pressures from human development that Chabaco has, we're within the top 50, largest 50 lakes in the Commonwealth. This is, this diamond-shaped red here is the Chabaco watershed. This is the lake here. It's half in Essex, half in Hamilton, with a little bit in Manchester and a tiny bit in Wenham. We're the headwaters of the Essex River watershed, which is the rest of the red area there. And what connects the two is the Alewife Brook, which is about 1.5 miles that moves for most of its length at a very slow pace. So I'll come back to Alewife Brook in just a minute. So one of the reasons that the Lake Association is important is that in Massachusetts, no one is in charge of watershed stewardship. There's all kinds of jurisdictional support and regulation. For example, in Hamilton, we have the Select Board, the Board of Health for septic systems, the Conservation Commission for wetland protection, the Planning Board and ZBA for stormwater management, and the DPW and Water Department for public water supply, which at the moment Hamilton is not pulling from the Chabaco watershed, but down the road, it would be crazy to rule out the watershed as a potential source of future water should the town need it. It's currently being used by Essex and Manchester. Those two communities have a high degree of concern and give a great significance to the watershed for their ongoing public water supply. So what we try to do is be the connection, the conversation, conduit, the catalyst for trying to look at the watershed holistically. And this really, for us, a lot happened just within the last few years. We had the 133 Essex Street development, which really was a huge challenge to the watershed overall. But just looking at it ecologically, a real spark or a real moment was 2020, when we had a harmful algae bloom in the lake that closed the lake entirely to human use for 19 days in the prime months of the summer. And since then, we have been trying to look at what that means for the future. The EPA tells us that with global warming and climate change, that lakes and ponds are one of the places where we're going to experience the most stress, ecological stress, because they're robust ecosystems and they do a lot of good, but they're also vulnerable to the kinds of changes that we're experiencing right now. So that happened in 2020. We mobilized in 2021. We said, well, the first problem that we need to look at is the condition of the outlet brook, Alewife Brook. I won't go into details, but we hired a excellent riverine consulting group called Interfluve. They're now in their 3rd year of data collection in the brook. We have a pretty good understanding of what the problems are in the brook and where we might go to manage it in the future. And then we've just finished the last lake sampling for the lake itself. We hired a group called Applied Watershed Sciences that has done sort of a limited amount of lake sampling last year and this year. And so I want to report on what's come out of that, what the findings are, the basic conditions of the lake, and where we're going next. So if we go into a doctor's office, they check our vital signs, right? And when a lake consultant comes in, they have vital signs that they look at first too. And these are the 4 main ones that we commissioned sampling and analysis on. So the first conclusion that they came to was that we have an enormous area of the lake that at the bottom of the lake has near zero oxygen, which is really bad for fish, plants, but it also is the condition where cyanobacteria, harmful algae blooms, originate. I always thought you see the green, slimy stuff on the surface, and you just assume, I have so assumed that algae blooms started at the surface, but they don't. They start in low oxygen areas. So we have about as much as 50% of the lake is what's called a dead zone. Secondly, the water clarity, which is critical to a lake purifying and cleansing itself. The sunlight penetrates deep and it lets the biological processes of healing take place. The clarity has gone way down from 7 feet 40 years ago to just 4 feet last year. And in addition, we have excessive nutrients, phosphorus being what's called the limiting factor. So the more phosphorus we have, the more plant growth we have in the lake. And then lastly, the mix of plankton in the lake is strongly biased towards an advantage for cyanobacteria. So we have really created a condition where harmful algae blooms are almost predictable in the conditions that we have in the lake right now. So what do we do and where are we? We feel we've completed the preliminary assessment phase over the last 3 years of understanding the brook and the vital signs of the lake. The Lake Association has contributed about $20,000 to that work, and the town of Essex, working with Senator Tarr, has gotten earmarks to handle the work in Alewife Brook itself. Town of Essex, I can't speak for the town, but we are pretty far along in conversations with them to contribute, both continue their work to try to get some earmark money to support the effort, but also town budgeting to support this work going forward. And they asked us to make sure that we were checking in with the town of Hamilton and making a similar request. So the work that has to happen over the next 2 years is going to cost somewhere in that range of $100,000 or about $50,000 a year. The Lake Association has just finished raising about $15,000. So we're hoping that with Hamilton kicking in 15, Essex kicking in 15, and some money from the state, that we will have enough to do this study going forward. As far as the brook, the way we handled it there, the town of Essex was the contracting entity, but we worked together in a collaborative way, had all our meetings together, coordinated our main decisions together, and I would assume something like that would happen with this work going forward. So this will allow us to do the work that's necessary to, number one, come up with a restoration strategy. And it's kind of crazy. I started with this in 1988 when we moved it to the lake in 1987. And I was in real estate development then and have an engineering background, but it was overwhelming back then, all the science of it. But there weren't that many solutions offered back in 1985, in the late 80s. Today, there are literally dozens of restoration techniques and technologies that are out there. So part of this process is to find the right mix of solutions that can improve the oxygen, reduce the nutrients, improve the water clarity, and so forth. So part of this is figuring out what data do we need so we can pick and choose the right fit of solutions. And second, what data do we need to qualify for the state and federal restoration funds and grant funds? Because any restoration strategy is likely to cost in excess of $200,000, and hopefully we don't all have to fund that ourselves. So that's where we're at. Happy to take any questions, fill in any gaps.
I applaud your work. I mean,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great.
it's a lot of work and a lot of hours, and appreciate, and a lot of people pay attention. If you don't live near, a lot of people pay attention to it, but it's a real problem, so I'm glad you're working on the problem. I had a question for you in terms of other, I mean, obviously you're studying other lakes similar. So what, are there success stories that would be helpful to sort of the community here that might be, so that's always what's usual. When we go over a new policy or anything, we kind of look at other towns and see what they did to be successful.
We think the same way. We just had a guest speaker at our forum from Lake Sunapee Protective Association in New Hampshire. Kirk Bishop spoke. That association, believe it or not, has been in existence for 125 years. And their key to their success has been education with neighbors, and also just an incredibly thorough attention to how water flows across the surface of land into the lake, which is something we cover in newsletters. We have an excellent person on our board who's a landscaper and really interested in this work, Robin Cantor. But we're going to really rev that up next year and do a much more extensive opportunity for people to modify their properties to reduce the amount of nutrients and pollutants that are getting into the lake. But yes, we have other, we've met several times with the people at Hood's Pond and Topsfield that went through a very similar process, multi-year process. The one thing that we learned from that, from listening to people, is there aren't shortcuts. You got to get the data first. You got to really understand what's happening in your lake. And there's a wonderful, complicated chart that shows that every lake is different. There are so many different factors, and you just have to go through that process of understanding it.
Yes.
I'd always wondered when my 5th grade science project on eutrophication was going to come in handy. Today's that day.
Excellent.
It's just 35 years in the making. To that end, I do wonder, my very fundamental understanding or basic understanding of this, though, is that you sort of hit a tipping point where it becomes an exponential issue. And I wonder, I mean, looking at the plan that goes from 2021 to 2027, like the data sets, are they going to be consistent in that way throughout this? And is there a need to actually pull that back sooner if you have this level of algae that's already happening? And at what point does it sort of start to, I guess, fast forward?
You're right. In most cases, eutrophication does accelerate. One of the things that is of concern, but it's purely speculation, is that houses on Tobacco Lake winterized after 128 was completed in the late 1950s. So since the 1960s, we've been pounding more and more phosphorus into the ground and into the lake. And the ground is great at attaching the phosphorus and binding with the phosphorus. So a certain amount of the phosphorus is captured in the soil. But soil eventually reaches a limit where it can't hold anymore, and at that point, more phosphorus is coming into the lake. Plus, you have another big factor where reduced water clarity causes the accelerating process that you just mentioned. So everyone talks about there is a tipping point, and you want to get on top of this before we reach the tipping point, because it's far more difficult later to turn it around.
And we feel like we're sort of still in that safe.
I can't say we know one way or the other how far away the tipping point is, but one thing is, as you, I'm sure, studied, eutrophication is a long process. But on the other hand, harmful algae blooms are year to year.
Yep.
Over 25 lakes in Massachusetts had harmful algae blooms this year, this summer. And we just don't want to be in a situation where every other year we're closing the lake because of a harmful algae bloom. That'll make David Wilson's life really miserable because he's got the job of closing it.
It's too bad I don't still have the diorama. It was very compelling.
We'd like to use it.
I missed that day in town manager class. How do you spell that?
Oh, it's EUT, TROPHICATION, I think, eutrophication. I'll look it up though for you later.
You got it, you got it.
Thanks.
Okay, so, obviously, the discussion here is the will of the board to authorize funding for the next 2 years. And I think likely the sentiment is that we would like to support in whatever we can. The questions that we will obviously get from the town scrutiny is just, how is the funding managed? What funding, I know some of it's in here, what funding's coming from other towns? How is that sort of managed? What sort of visibility do we have into how the funds are used, how the contractors are selected, things like that? If you have information, that would be great.
Can I ask some questions? So I suspect that you'd want to partner with the town of Essex again, as you did in the past, to let Essex manage the procurement process.
I mean, Joe, that would be fine with us, but Brendan Zabricki, the town administrator in Essex, is looking forward to meeting with you. We can work that part out. The first step is, are we all in this together? And then we'll just figure out from there what kind of process everyone's happy with. And we've had a terrific relationship with the town of Essex so far. They've been terrific advocates and partners. I'm sure that it will be the same as a three-party or multiple-party process.
Can I ask a question too, Joe? Is there any funding today that we already do for the lake, since a lot of it is in Hamilton? And also back in 2020 with the algae bloom, was there a cost to the town of Hamilton as a result to mitigate
The town of Hamilton hasn't incurred any cost on this project so far, and we don't currently do, other than the things that the boards do already as part of their function, Conservation Commission, Board of Health, et cetera. We don't dedicate any funding towards the lake at this point. As far as what our ability to participate this year would be, it would probably require us seeking a reserve fund transfer from the Finance Advisory Committee, because we don't have any money in the budget for that, that I could divert to there. But we haven't spent any of our reserve fund for the year, so that would potentially be a good source. We do a pretty good job of not seeking reserve fund transfers year to year, so there should be funds there for that. And then if the board decides that it wants to support this, then we're just at the start of the budget process, so we could plan for that expense in FY26. Yeah. So that's the way I look at that. I'd also say that from my perspective, and I'm happy to meet with Brendan, he's a great guy, but he and Essex and Dave, those folks have already done a lot of work to lead this work to this point. So if they were open to it and you were supportive of it, I'd propose that we'd sign some kind of an agreement with Hamilton, a memorandum of understanding or agreement that would allow Essex to take the lead, and we provide our funds to the town of Essex that would manage the project from a financial perspective. That they would have the same types of financial controls in place that we would if we were going to undertake it. So that'd be my recommendation there.
Okay. So I'd like to make a couple of comments. The first thing is I'm very impressed. First of all, I think it was 2021, I was a member of Senator Tarr's Alway Brook Coalition, and I was very impressed with the work that was done on a shoestring budget. There were lots of volunteers. It was very creative in how those volunteers were procured, and we watched that progress. So I have seen the effects of Senator Tarr's intervention in that. And also, as well as Senator Tarr's, the Chabaco Lake Watershed Association has been just tirelessly involved in this. The residents around the lake have contributed their own money for this project, as well as the town of Essex and the town of, and the state. And so people are saying, why Hamilton? There are lots of reasons why Hamilton should be included. I don't think I'm speaking to an adverse audience here. I think everybody's generally supportive of it. But just to sort of highlight some of the reasons why we should. Chabaco Woods abuts, obviously, Chabaco Lake and that area. And it's just a very, very heavily used recreational area. We want to keep it pristine and keep it environmentally safe. So there's a lot of healthy passive recreation there. As you noted, Dave, local high schools use the lake for rowing activity, and that's always healthy for kids to get out. And finally, I think the financial picture, there are over 100 Hamilton houses around that lake, which has about a $60 million real estate valuation, and that premium land has an immense tax value that is beneficial to the town of Hamilton. So certainly for all the environmental reasons, there are also financial reasons why I encourage my colleagues to vote affirmatively to support this project.
Just to confirm, there's full public access to Tobacco Lake.
There's a boat ramp.
There's a ramp.
Okay.
Boat ramp
Beach
at the
and boat
south
ramp.
end of the lake is state-owned. The state does very little to manage it. In fact, right now, the lake is at a very, very low elevation, and people are having difficulty getting their boats out of the lake at the ramp. And the state is not proactive about solving that problem. I did just want to slip in to Joe's earlier point of that there is no town of Hamilton funds going directly to the lake, but the town of Hamilton does one essential service to the lake community, and that is it really monitors the boat ramp really well, the parking, the partying, all that kind of thing. They're very responsive to phone calls about any nuisance that's happening on the lake, and that was not always the case, but in the 90s, the police chief really made it a priority, and it's stayed consistently excellent since then, so it's a huge contribution.
So I hear two things. The first is formalizing some sort of MOU.
I think the first is if the board wants to vote
Right,
on
so-
whether to support the effort, and then.
Supporting the effort, getting it in the budget, and then the MOU. Are those the three
Yeah.
things that I heard coming out of this?
Except for the current year, for the FY '25 year, we'd probably need to seek the $15,000 from the Finance and Advisory Committee Reserve Fund.
Okay,
But we have $150,000 in that account. We haven't spent any of it, and we're halfway through the year, so.
okay. So the first question I would ask is like, is there support to do this? And if so, is there support to pull it out of that reserve fund to do it for this year with a formal budget ask for 2026? Is that what we're saying? FY 2026?
Yes.
To go to Wendy for budget planning purposes? Is that what we're all hearing? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've dropped to that source of funding. Is that the only source you would?
There wouldn't be another source in there really wouldn't be another source in the current year budget.
The ARPA money's depleted? Or
Well,
that's-
actually, you're right. We have ARPA money is on here for later, so you could do that. My problem is ARPA funds have to be obligated by the end of December, and that would mean that we'd have to have contracts in place and everything else signed by December 31st in order to not risk losing that money back to the federal government. You know,
No, that makes sense.
we don't have a lot of time to get through FinCom hearings and everything else and have them, you know, so just an idea. I'd rather, it's up to you, but.
So it would be a relatively easy financial transaction to request it from the fund from the Finance
Yes.
and Advisory
Yeah,
Committee?
it-
Sure.
simply, typically, that requires the select board to ask us to take it to the FinCom. Sometimes it can initiate in the department, in the finance department from the finance director, but typically we initiate it here. We ask them formally, they consider it, they will probably ask Mr. Lash and the CLWA to come in, to talk about it, and then they'll make their decision.
So is the motion to formally request $15,000 authorized by the FinCom from the reserve for the express purpose of providing $15,000 to the Chabaco Lake Watershed Association?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Second. All right, so, yeah.
So I think that's the right motion. That means we're only making a $15,000 commitment. We're looking for a $30,000 commitment.
So the second motion
Right.
would be a motion to request that Wendy add a $15,000 commitment for this work into the FY '26 budget as a part of the budget process that's kicked off.
And I so moved.
Okay, so we have two live motions on the table.
Need a
And then
second.
we need a third motion.
But
Yep,
is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Then the third motion,
Who got the second? Bill?
Bill?
Bill got the second. The third motion is a motion to develop an MOU
Right.
with the town of Essex to formalize the relationship and the funding for FY '26.
So you don't need a motion that, you just need to tell me to do it?
Yeah, do
That's
that.
my job.
A motion to authorize
You just need to tell
Yeah.
me to do that.
Motion to authorize, but is that what you're suggesting? Do you want Essex to, I mean, that-
Essex has been a wonderful lead. We'd be happy to
they've been
have
the
that.
lead for the
Yeah,
financial
yeah.
aspect of it? Okay, so you're running the funds through.
What if
Essex.
they take our money and put up Christmas lights?
I think that's gonna happen, because we're gonna have an MOA in place.
That's the MOU.
We're gonna have, that's the MOU. The MOU will take care of that.
So,
Okay, so on the first motion of the
And
request
I
from
had one other
FinCom.
question, like, I know we have a depleted conservation commission right now, but what other town, I mean, Joe, we're obviously the select board, but there's a lot of what other organizations in town should hear this
So the Board of Health,
presentation and weigh in on next steps?
Well, I mean, for what you're asking to do, it's just you and the FinCom. But
Yeah.
as far as if you want more buy-in, I would go to the CONSCOM and the Board of Health.
Okay.
And planning board's already passed new stormwater regulations. The water department already does its best to limit its impact. We're not drawing water out of the water, out of that watershed at this moment, but we do our best to limit our impact as far as, we do low salt in that area, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying our best to not be one of the negative impacts on the lake.
It's on our agenda to brief all the boards and commissions that are
Ooh, that would
on
be
that
helpful.
chart. And- Yeah.
It'd be helpful if you do
And- And also, in particular with the conservation commissions, we're really hoping that we can get Hamilton and Essex boards together and do it as a collective thing, because as you saw, the municipal line goes right down through the middle of the watershed.
So I would ask, would you consider asking Manchester to support? Because Manchester's water source is, it's in Hamilton, but it is the watershed. And whatever we do to affect one lake will probably impact the others. So
Right.
I would venture to guess they may want to be participatory in protecting their water source, I hope.
Yes, absolutely, and they already are very active. Steve Gang, who's the chair of the Conservation Commission, is also very instrumental in Manchester's public water supply in the future, so they're already very much part of the process.
If you go back to your third slide, I mean, Joe, you guys are obviously the Tobacco Lake and Watershed Association, but is that just formula, you the diamond, and there's other watersheds that touch that? Like you work
Yes.
with, so you're the diamond of that
Yeah, well,
map,
the-
but then you touch other watershed?
The big one that you will probably already know is the Ipswich River watershed, which
Right.
is 10 times larger than we are in terms of square miles. And they have 11 and a half staff positions. We are a 100% volunteer organization. But Ipswich River initiated something called the Pye River Partnership, which stands for Parker Ipswich Essex River Partnership. And we participate with them. In fact, we're going to be speaking at their December meeting to work with other groups throughout this whole Great Marsh region. So that's been a terrifically valuable thing. And Ipswich River is, this past year, they were a fiscal partner for us, so they handled we don't have a good accounting system ourselves. That's one of our goals for 2025. We're moving towards that. But last year, the last 2 years, that wasn't the case, and we had funding that we were paying out to the consultant. We wanted somebody to make sure that all the
right.
I's were dotted and T's were crossed, so Ipswich River took on that responsibility. And then we're going to be bringing that in-house this coming year. But they're a tremendous resource. They've helped us in numerous ways.
Just real quickly, I just note too that part of the reason that I would urge that we create the MOA with the town of Essex is that towns are not allowed to give money to nonprofits.
That was my
Yep.
question.
So I have to partner with another municipal entity that can spend public funds in order to get the funds in the right place.
Okay.
and that's the case for the original 15,000 will go to Essex.
Right.
Got it, okay. All right, so we have two motions. The first we're going to vote on is the,
Three motions.
I don't think.
no,
he's
the
sitting
third
in
one
the-
is just we just tell them at this man here
Okay.
to do the thing. We've killed Dave with all this conversation. He's had to leave.
Drink the water.
He drank the water, the Godzilla algae. Okay, so the first motion is the first 15,000 coming out of reserve, the request for the FinCom. Is there any additional discussion on that, the 2025? Okay, great. Roll call vote. Tom, I'll start with you.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye.
Okay.
The second motion is the motion to have the funding formalized in the FY26 budget. Wendy's here. She's eavesdropping. She's excited. So is there any additional discussion on that ask? Awesome. I'll start a roll call with you, Tom.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye.
Dave, I guess we're going to become friends.
Love the way you all work. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming and
Thank you,
for bringing
thank
such
you for,
incredible
Great work, really good.
props. I say this to everybody, it does not hurt our feelings when you leave. We know how this works.
This is actually leftover asthma. I had a head cold about 3 weeks ago. The head cold's long gone, but when I talk, I lose it.
I get
So,
it.
apologies.
I was just in New Mexico.
Don't be alarmed.
Where that thin air, I couldn't even walk up like 3 stairs without having to lay down. Just terrible. Thin air. All right, thank you so much, and
Sounds like a drinking problem.
it's a dream. Hush. We'll keep you.
we have this electronically so that Tom can get it, right?
Yep.
Wendy and I will initiate the initial $15,000 request to the FinCom, and I'll reach out to Brendan and get started on MOU.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
coming in.
Appreciate it. All right. Next, we have our good friend David Smith, the Chair of the Board of Health, to tell us about the keeping of animals and other regulation updates. David, take it away.
Thanks, Caroline. I'm just going to take a few minutes to update you on our revised Keeping of Animals regulation, which now is officially entitled Revised Regulation for the Keeping of Animals Permits and Stable Coop Licenses. The existing reg was adopted in 1989, it's about 35 years ago, and it hasn't been touched since then. And I certainly concluded that it was written by people who really had little or no horses or farm animal experience. Over the past couple of years, the staff of the health department and the board have really struggled to interpret this regulation and answer questions from our residents. We found the regulation inconsistent, ambiguous, confusing, difficult to interpret, and very difficult to enforce. How's that for a problematic regulation? And just one example, the permits and licenses, we have 130 permits and licenses under that regulation. And they're supposed to be, they expire and are supposed to be renewed every year. And we always seem to have a group of people who just simply don't do it. And so they're essentially operating, they're keeping animals and operating stables without a license. And we had no way to do anything about it. So with the experience that I have for probably, I hate to say this, probably 40 years with having horses and being around farms in this area, I decided to take it upon myself to just revise the regulation and make it current. So I started at the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards website, looking for current regs, and I found a couple towns of Medfield and Concord. I looked at our neighboring towns, and fortunately we have some recent regulations from Essex, Manchester, and Rowley. I solicited input from our local veterinarians, from the horse farm managers, from a couple of farm owners, and took all this together and came up with a working draft. We went through with the board several iterations. We held a public hearing to get comments. We had finally the town council review it, and he or she did some extensive revisions to it. So all those things were incorporated, and we finally adopted the regulation at our September board meeting. So it's now updated. However, some people have said, well, how is it different? I'm going to surprise you with this. Under the old regulation, horse owners were required to obtain a keeping of animals permit, even if they boarded their horse at a permitted and licensed stable. So that amounts to basically duplicate permitting, and it just confused people. Well, whose obligation is it to keep the permit, and where is it kept, and all that? The revised regulation eliminates that duplication, requires that if you are a horse owner that you legally board at a permitted stable, at a licensed stable, then you're not required to do that. So that straightened that problem out. The old regulation required a minimum of about 2 acres of property to keep a horse. We revised that to 1. The old regulation did not specifically address how many chickens or poultry could be kept on a property above a certain number before a permit was required. And revised regulation just specifies that. It eliminates that ambiguity. The old regulation did not explicitly specify that a keeping of animals permit, a fee and a stable license fee have to be paid as a condition for renewal. The revised regulation does do that. The old regulation provided no explanation on the basis on which an application would be renewed or approved. So the new regulation, revised regulation, does that. The old regulation specified a minimum size, no minimum size of property required for keeping of animals or any maximum number of animals in a given size property. The revised regulation does that, and the revised regulation specifies detailed procedures for amending an existing license, requesting a variance, appeals for a board decision, enforcing the regulation, and then imposition of penalties for violation. And the old regulation just didn't do that. So it really was a regulation that was meaningless in a way. So that's a summary of what it now does, the revised regulation. And I just want to update you on a couple of other things that are in the works, and that is we haven't touched the fee schedule in ages, and we're working on revising that. That is the fee schedule for the permits and licenses. And then I've urged our health department to go online with their permitting, given that just in the keeping of animals permits and stable licenses over 130, and they have to be renewed every year. It just seemed logical that can and should go online. Now, going beyond that keeping of animals business, I just want to highlight a couple of important regulatory actions we took this year. We significantly revised our tobacco regulations to bring them up to date with and current with the state requirements, and that they were significantly out of date until we did that. We revised our tuberculosis regulations to eliminate public schools in general from that regulation, except for Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, which is still subject to that tuberculosis regulation. And as you know, we adopted a new septic loan program for Title V, for systems that fail Title V inspection. And then we've been working hard on revising our private water well regulation in light of the fact that the state published a new model regulation for that. But we're putting that off till next year. We've had a pretty full agenda this year. So there you are. Questions?
I have one question about grandfathering of, say, large animals, horses. Is that still in effect, or does somebody need to get a new permit with this new regulation?
Town council made sure that the revised regulation contains a grandfathering clause that specifies that if you don't change anything, then you continue to be subject to the old regulation. But if you change something, like you increase the size of a stable, or you increase the number of animals that you're boarding, that would require a revision, and then that revision comes under the aegis of the the revised regulation.
Okay. And just one other question. I remember a few years ago, there was quite a brouhaha about roosters in town. And so I'm wondering what the current feeling is about that.
Says you can't have them.
I got asked that question the other day because apparently someone was complaining about it. There's no explicit, what's the word? We don't explicitly exclude roosters. It just is going to be done on a case-by-case basis. That is, if somebody has a rooster and it's not causing a nuisance to the neighborhood, well, that's okay. However, if a rooster prompts neighbors to complain, then we'll have to deal with it.
So where it says no rooster shall be kept unless the permit so specifies, the permit would specify it if they requested it?
If let's take a specific. If a rooster is not on the farm now, and you want to add it, then you've got to come to the board and basically revise your permit to allow it. And in doing that, we would have to hold a public hearing and take comments from abutters. If the rooster if there's a rooster on the property now and it in their permit, then they can keep it.
Even if the permit doesn't specify it?
No,
Because it's grandfathered in, you're saying?
Because it's grandfathered, yeah.
Got it, okay. And I apologize if you already said this. I was curious about section 5.4 being completely removed, which is that no large animals should be kept in the town without having available for inspection upon demand. The certifications of vaccinations, including rabies, all of that.
Yeah.
Why was that struck?
It was because we sent this up to Michael Cahill in the Department of Agricultural Resources at the state. He reviewed the regulation and he said those provisions are not enforceable unless you pass a bylaw, a town bylaw that requires them, and then they're enforceable. So we would have to go the route of creating a new bylaw for the town bylaws.
Okay, so animals are not required to be vaccinated against things like rabies per this.
Well, under our regulation, no, but the state Department of Agricultural Resources, I do believe, requires rabies vaccinations. Now, I'm getting a little bit out of my depth right there, but I know I was a little disappointed to hear that it was unenforceable. So we eliminated it. Town council also had had basically the same quandaries about it. What's the basis on which we would specify those vaccination requirements? So if we want to do it, Caroline, all we'd have to do is create a new town bylaw and get the bylaw voted in at town meeting, and then we'll have those requirements.
Okay. I mean, I think it's worth taking offline. I know this is sort of the same process we went through with the CONSCOM, where it was like regulation and bylaw and like sort of updating them. The only reason I even bring it up is because, we do have the charming public pooping of animals. And if we've taken out the thing that says that this is like certificate of all sorts of things. And I'm just worried, like, if we have animals that are allowed in public and they're allowed to go downtown, and we have no way of monitoring whether those animals have been vaccinated for certain types of diseases, I feel like maybe we should just double check that in the process for putting it into a bylaw.
Do you mean in terms of?
I'd be happy to take.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's on their
the lead in doing
property,
that.
right? But if you have a large animal license, but a lot of people bring their horses downtown or bring them around town, and suddenly we've taken out the provision that says that they need to make sure that those animals are, you know, safe to be around.
So I'll just make the comment, though, it may not be required by state or by us as a town. Pretty much all of the local barns do require that horses coming in have
Have-
particular
yeah.
vaccinations.
Okay.
Caroline, I think Rosie's absolutely right. Any barn that I'm familiar with a responsible barn manager will absolutely require that all horses specifically have certain minimum vaccination. And I'm familiar with a case where the barn manager evicted one of the boarders because that horse owner refused to get their horse vaccinated, and so they were banished from the barn. And that, I think that's probably pretty typical of just about all the responsible barn managers that I'm familiar with.
Yeah. I mean, only because we set up in here that if you have an acre of land, you can have a cow.
Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate horse owners. I'm just saying, if we're telling people if you have an acre of land, you can have a cow, we might, we just would make sure those cows aren't, you know, mad
Right.
cowing.
If the select board so wishes that that they feel it would be appropriate for the town to have a bylaw that requires certain vaccinations of farm animals, I'll tackle that. But I mean, you tell me.
I don't know enough about it to demand at this moment that we do that. But I would be curious for us to just talk more about it at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know how feral cows get, but one never knows.
No, I mean, I see the reason and the logic behind having it. I mean, is it harmful just to leave it, even if it's not enforceable, but it's there? And, you know, I think, like you said, most responsible, you know, barn managers would abide by it. And so if it's in writing, you know, most responsible homeowners would as well, even if we know we don't have a leg to stand on.
I think the
Joe,
problem is.
Joe, could you ask town council to advise on this as to whether or not we should put those back in, even though the state folks feel they're not enforceable unless they're a bylaw?
I'll check with town council. I'd also say, I think, we're not, you don't create laws because of responsible people. You create laws to control the people who aren't responsible. And if it's unenforceable, then we're creating a regulation that's unenforceable because the people that are going to be responsible are going to make sure their animals are vaccinated anyway. I think it'd probably be better to make sure that our regulations reflect what we can enforce. And I'll check with town council. If we have to create a bylaw and the board so wishes, we can create a bylaw and bring it to town meeting.
Okay.
Let's see what that
That's
lift would
fine.
be. Is that a big lift? I have no idea.
You mean creating the bylaw?
Yeah, yep.
I don't think so. I think the guts of it basically exist in what provisions were in the earlier draft of the regulation that covered vaccinations.
Okay.
Obviously depends on the species as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Future, new business down the road, I
Yeah,
guess.
just some things for us to keep in mind. I don't want to be the one responsible for a mad cow in town.
Now you brought it up.
It's not my legacy.
She knew.
It's not my legacy. Anything else, David Smith?
Okay, I'm
Good
done.
job.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the initiative to update this for the first time in 30-plus years.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Again, not offended if you leave. We'd love you to stay, though.
Okay.
It's kind of a
But
quiet
it's
room.
it's past dinner time, I know. All right, next is our approving of the change of manager at the Myopia Hunt Club.
This is just a standard change of manager request. The Hunt Club's obviously had a change of personnel. The manager's name needs to be on the liquor license, and all the rest of the paperwork is in order. So,
Moved.
I mean, I only had one silly question, but the on their resume for Sean Green, it says like what's his previous employment, or it says he's been a manager since March 1st, 24. So this took 7 months to get in front of us?
it's a good question. I'm not, I think that I think there's been some overlap. I think the other person was still there and employed,
Okay.
but he's not anymore, so.
I mean, I'm not going
needs
to
go
deny
on.
it, I'm just more curious that it takes 7 months.
I can ask.
Yeah, we're not really vigilant on making sure we know who the managers of liquor licenses,
Well,
but,
I mean, we don't become aware of it until they come and ask for a change
exactly
of
right.
manager, so.
but there hasn't been a problem, so I'm just more curious.
Okey doke.
And I appreciate that somebody redacted the social security number and the date of birth.
That was good. I believe,
We
Cracker Jack
finally,
staff.
we finally figured that out after a few years.
That was my Cracker Jack staff.
I like that.
Or did that on the way out and made sure Cindy knows to do it going forward, so.
I believe we had a motion to approve. Who is that from?
That was me.
That was, do we have, Rosie, is that a second?
Sure, whatever.
All right, any further discussion? All right, roll call, beginning with you, Tom.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye. Perfect. All right, the next is a follow-up item from the request from the Cooks, who had requested to purchase 2 burial plots in Hamilton. And then we had asked for a little bit of additional information from them in order to make the decision. And they sent us back a
Very
very
nice letter.
robust,
Yes.
information.
I'm good.
Yeah, they already have family that's buried here. They were here with their families before. They also lived here. They did leave in 1991.
They just moved back.
Yep,
They moved to Wenham because they couldn't find a house in Hamilton, so.
yep.
It all
So-
makes sense to me.
They seem very connected to the town. But I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the request by Ed and Eleanor Cook to purchase 2 burial plots in Hamilton Cemetery.
So
And then-
moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second, and we can discuss further if you'd like.
I'm good. I read the letters. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Okay, any more discussion? I will then take a vote. Tom Myers,
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
and Caroline Beaulieu, aye. If we haven't emailed them, I mean, we'll obviously email them back to tell them it was approved, but also just how grateful we are for how robust their response was. That was really lovely of them to put all that time into that.
Yep.
All right, next, although we are all getting into the swing of the delight of the holiday season, it is time for us to look towards January and beyond to approve our meeting schedule for,
You skipped some.
did I?
There's a new agenda.
Oh, sorry. Never mind. Hold that. Authorize the town manager to sign contracts with ESG for town hall decarbonization project. This is in lieu of us having to do it ourselves each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. I usually sign contracts. This is just a 20-year contract, and it's already been discussed. It's had the support of town meeting votes and your votes. But where the term is so long, we just thought it'd be better just to have you take one more vote, authorizing me to sign the contract, as I normally would in most other circumstances anyway. And Bill Garbati's here to answer any questions if you have them, but he's only on phone, on voice, I think, so. The contract was worked over several times by our town council, who was very diligent in making sure we were protected. So Rick Holland does a great job at that. He had to have several one-on-one discussions with ESG's council.
All right.
Are you still negotiating the contract or just signing the contract?
What's there is what would be signed.
Because it says draft on it, but that's only because it just hasn't been executed yet.
Right. We'll remove the draft.
So I make a motion to authorize Joe Demolowitz, town manager, to sign the contract as presented to us for the what's the initials again?
ESG.
ESG contract. And how many times do you have to sign it? Is it signed to one
Signed at
document?
one time, but it's for 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
For 20-year contract.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, second.
Second by our friend Wilson. Anybody would like to discuss this further before we vote?
It looks very complicated. The town council has reviewed it and felt comfortable with it. I'm comfortable.
And dollars and scope are the same as what we've discussed in the past, correct?
Joe, I want you to explain the equation on page 91, please.
Yeah, could you just get in there a little bit?
Kilowatt hours over over something.
Bill, you want, oh, Bill left me. Bill left me. He thought you were voting, and he just left me already, damn.
I already had to spell eutrophication on camera, so I'm good for today. It's all the same to everybody else. Tom Myers.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye.
Thank you all for your trust in me.
You're welcome, Joe. All right, now we actually are going to talk about our meeting. No.
No, we got one
No,
more thing.
why did I just skip? Okay,
CPC.
next we're going to approve request for the Community Preservation Committee signage. Tell us what this means, Joe.
Yeah, and there's nothing in your packets for it, which is confusing to me. The Community Preservation Committee would like to put up some signage, particularly I think it's outside of the town hall project that CPC money is being used to help pay for the project, and that the signage doesn't go up without your approval. So they're just asking for permission to put up some signs that cites that a big portion of that project's being paid for with with town CPC dollars.
Well, I make a motion that we allow the sign that authorizes that wonderful CPC to put up their signage in front of the project at Town Hall, which they have generously contributed to.
Jay's on in case, I don't know if Jay wants to, is this?
Well, finish the motion, finish the
Oh, sorry.
motion.
Yeah, sorry.
Was that it?
And all their funded projects, not just.
We need a second.
I'll second that.
This enthusiasm.
Specifically,
Yeah.
thinking the Town Hall, so
Right,
they
right.
wanted to put signage.
But they have a
up.
list of the projects and everything, if anyone wants to see it.
The other one is the,
There's some at Patton Park, there's some,
and there's one at the, in front of the PSP building with the fire station.
People.
So then we'll, okay, so then we'll, I'll amend that motion to include recent CPC funding projects such as the Patton Park project, the Steeple project, and was there another one?
The fire,
And
fire, yeah.
Jay, we covering all of them?
fire.
the fire truck house, whatever you want to call it.
The fire truck house, yes.
And
High
Jay,
school
anything else,
athletic
Jay?
field.
So I
Was there
second
a-
the
yeah, there was
amended,
a
second the amended motion.
Okay.
Okay, so, love this. I would like to understand the form and factor of these signs, size of these signs.
They're temporary signs, similar to in size to most every other sign you see in town for whatever. They're small, they're only gonna be there during the course of construction, and they'll be taken down when construction is completed.
Okay.
They'll be sized appropriately to be more or less the same, I don't know the exact dimensions, but pretty much the same size of all the other little signs you see around town. They're not large signs.
Okay. I also ask because I know when people like put banners, there's like stick them in the ground signs, or are they hanging them up signs?
Stick them in the ground.
Stick them in the ground signs. Okay, great. I just want to make sure because we have insurance requirements for different kinds of signs, and if that was the case, we just need to make sure we're adhering to all that.
So these will be tasteful signs.
Tasteful signs, appropriate
tasteful
time
signs.
period. I mean, not so tasteful that people can't see them.
Right.
Okay.
Just gaudy enough to be seen.
Just
and
gaudy
noticed.
enough to be seen from space, but tasteful for the downtown traveler.
So Jay, these are just, kind of like stick them in the ground, as you said, not plaques that'll stay in front of some of these locations forever?
No, these are temporary signs that will stick in the ground in front of the work sites during the construction period. For, once construction is complete, we have a set of brass plaques, maybe
These.
6 by 8 inches, that we would ask to be installed on the building itself once the project is completed. And we've had, there's about 6 or 7 of them around town that have been put there over the years.
Yeah.
And for some of these projects, like Town Hall, for instance, we would ask that a small plaque be put somewhere in Town Hall acknowledging the CPA's contribution.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds.
And the flag up top, big flag.
Some of the other projects like
those
the
car dealership
athletic
things.
fields and the Patton Park, I'm sure they'll have custom signage thanking all donors, and the CPC would be listed on those signs. And so we wouldn't put a separate one.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion? Tom Myers.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye. Thanks for coming, Jay. It's
Thanks,
always
Jay.
a pleasure to see
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, now for real. We are going to discuss the meeting schedule for January to June. It is in the packet. I will make a couple of notes. So the Tuesday meetings you see, the first one is because Monday is MLK. Monday, January 20th is MLK. Tuesday, January 21st is when we move the meeting. Similarly, Monday, February 17th is Indigenous Peoples' Day, formerly known as, I was thinking called President's Day, not Indigenous Peoples' Day. So the meeting has been moved to Tuesday, February 18th. That is also school vacation week, so there's a high likelihood that myself and Tom may not be available. So I just caution the group that we would be depending on others for quorum. It's also my birthday, so I probably won't be here.
These dates are just proposed. You can offer alternatives if you think you've got a better chance of having a quorum, but.
Bill will be here.
I will not be here that week either.
So there you go. You know that something that week's probably not going to be possible. If you want to move it to the following week, it means that you'll have meetings back to back on the 25th
Right.
and then the March.
3rd.
So, I mean, the only other thing you can offer is that there are 5 Mondays in March, so you could move 3 meetings. You could go 24th, 10th, and 24th.
You could do that.
Look at you with the thinking, the strategery over there.
24th, February 24th,
March 10th, March 24th. I just don't know what their conflicts are on those days.
10th, and 24th. I go for that.
There's also 5 in June.
Okay, so we're looking at perhaps saying Monday, February 3rd, Monday, February 23rd, then,
24th.
sorry,
24th.
24th, then Monday, March
10th.
10th, and then Monday, March
24th.
24th.
Yep.
And then
And then you go back to regular
back to regular
program.
scheduled programming. 1 second. I just want to check.
And then when's the April vacation?
That's what I'm looking up right now.
That's the week of the 14th.
Yeah, so that, we should be okay.
So we're in between on that one.
Yeah.
And then May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, we'll be having tacos and margaritas. No, we
Virgin margaritas.
virgin margaritas.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying during the meeting, you do what you want in your own time.
You never know. And then, I mean, I don't plan to be here May and June, so that's up to y'all.
Texas.
No, off the board.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Not your time already, is it?
oh yeah,
Go by fast.
so fast,
Yeah.
so fast.
Lots of fun.
3 years is
The
nothing.
days are long and the years are short. All right, so,
So with the just April change, right, or was it February?
It's a February, March
Okay.
change.
when are we looking at town meeting in April?
It is April 5th, Saturday, April 5th, the first Saturday of the month.
So it's actually nice that we have that 24th one in there then.
Yeah, I need to go back and look. We had set some of the calendar up based on what we thought the meeting dates were going to be, and I just need to make sure that
So why don't
whatever you
we
need voted,
table,
whatever you need to vote on is handled by March 10th instead of, I have to have it ready for you on the 10th instead of 17th.
so let's table this. You take these changes and we'll vote on it next time.
Okay.
Is that okay? You seemed sad
You
when I
said
said that.
no, you said
You said the word.
the word tabled, so it's.
Yeah, okay.
What did we just?
I tabled it. He just needs
Joe
to
wants
check the dates to make sure that we still meet the requirements for town meeting with those changed meetings in,
Oh, I see what you're
yeah.
saying.
So
Okay.
we won't vote on it tonight. Once he confirms that, we can vote on it next time. Okay.
We should make sure we know the dates for school budgets and all that as well in advance, so we have quorums.
All right, yeah, because there's also, remember there's that multi-chairs meeting was also scheduled for the 18th, I think?
There's 5 board meetings.
Yeah.
5 board meetings coming up. Yeah, I was looking at that today and wanting to send that out to you, so, okay.
Okay, next on our list is the use of ARPA funds. Such
And
vagaries.
that's what Wendy's here for. Well, so we're getting close, as I.
We have a
As
spreadsheet?
I referenced earlier, you have a spreadsheet that outlines what we believe, and actually, the one you have is off slightly. It's a little bit more than that now. You're showing unencumbered funds of, or total unobligated funds, rather, 280, 942, 85. It's actually 287 and change. Wendy, do you have that number in front of you, the new number? Because we were looking at it today. One of the,
Yes.
And we need this committed by December.
it needs to be obligated, which means
December
we have to have
31st.
stuff under contract. So we had held off, we were originally gonna, have you vote on putting some more money towards either Patton Park or roads and sidewalks. You wanted to, think about it a little bit more, and then we wanted to wait until we determined where the funding was coming to fix town hall. You demurred on offering any of this financing any of this funding toward the town hall project. So at this late date, I would say that we have recently gone out to bid on roadway contract that came in at over $980,000. If you diverted the rest of this towards road and sidewalks, we could use the saved Chapter 90 on other projects in another bid later on, and we'd be able to get everything obligated and spent, as opposed to worrying about the federal.
Do you have
government.
something to spend it on?
We have something to spend it right now. It's roads and sidewalks, which is one of your
love
favorite,
sidewalks.
which is one of your favorite projects, so.
Sidewalks.
I like smooth roads.
So, I guess I'm asking if
If
you
we
could,
did, if we said spend on something on Patton,
you put $100,000 into that, and that's the other thing. So right now, we know, we're putting together a contract that we don't think is gonna take the whole 100,000. So we know that there's 287, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong on this. There's
Yes, you're
287 and
correct.
change, and we think that the 100,000 that you had put towards Patton to create some plan for advancing the Patton Park, easy for me to say, Patton Park Master Plan, is gonna come in around $60,000 or $65,000. So I would ask for a vote that authorizes us to put
balance.
the 287 and whatever the balance from the Patton into the roadway project.
what about the 250, the sidewalk repairs and improvements?
You've already approved that, and that we're planning to put.
That's in the
towards-
same,
Yeah.
it's the same,
It's
we're
already
moving the
obligated.
280 up
Already-
to the 250.
You've already voted it, and we're already going to put that in the contract that we have for $980,000.
Oh,
So that'll be a part of that contract.
And the Chapter 90
Can I-
The
fund,
Chapter 90 fund stays in our budget, and we can use it again in the spring for another road and project.
does it only have to be roads and sidewalks?
Chapter 90 is roads and sidewalks, but it gives us more money to continue spending on roads and
Can't build too
sidewalks.
many sidewalks.
Okay,
We have a lot of requests for sidewalks and road.
you know,
road
I
improvements.
just think of all the fun town things we could do with that money.
What things are?
Unfortunately, I can't think of any of them that I can put
Fine.
under contract before the end of December.
Oh, I could help you with that, but it just seems, I don't know, everything for roads and
The
sidewalks,
bidding
that's
process is gonna
so
take,
boring.
bidding process alone is gonna take 4 to 6 weeks.
We
put
do,
anything out
can we
to
do
bid.
sidewalks on
And then you have to
downtown
negotiate the
Hamilton?
contract.
New sidewalks? Is that part of the sidewalks? Is anything in, on Brow Road?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear one of the fun, like, what's
Wait a
a
minute,
fun project?
let's get some trees for the town. Let's buy some trees.
Is that part of road sidewalks?
No, but the ARPA funds don't
They're
have
hanging
to
over the
be.
sidewalk, right?
No, we can't use Chapter 90 money on the trees,
Well,
but we could use a little bit of the ARPA money for
Look,
trees.
give me $10,000, and, well, not me personally, but, I mean, for the project,
I
come on.
respect the horse trading here right now. It's a good level.
Where would we put these trees? Tell me about these trees. Can you
Well-
even really buy many trees for $10,000?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it
I
depends
could
on how
buy-
big the tree you
Depends
buy
how big
is.
they are. If you buy
And it's a
saplings.
good time of year,
It's
it's
a good
the
year,
end
yeah.
of the year.
Buy 'em really cheap
create
right
it-
now.
you could buy
Exactly.
them inexpensively, put them into a
And I
tree
have
farm
a
in the
friend
back
in
of
the
DPW,
DPW.
and then in the spring you'd plant them.
I'm
No,
hap-
we could plant some of them now, the ground's not
They're like
totally
half off.
frozen yet.
Yeah.
Look, I'm happy to have some, I'm happy to have some
Okay.
trees.
All right.
Joe, how can you make that happen?
How
How can you make that happen?
We already have contract to buy trees when we need them, so we just divert those funds and then spend them quickly.
Okay,
on
can
the
I
contract.
make
What about the balance above 280 we spend on trees? The
So
7,000?
the 7,000 or whatever.
5 on Patton Park, 10 on trees.
Yeah, the balance from.
Let's do 10. Can we
Okay.
do
Yeah.
10? Let's do
Okay,
10.
So
10.
65 was the other thing.
So I'll make a motion that we spend $10,000 to obtain trees for Hamilton in a beautification project. And I'm happy to work with the DPW on where exactly we should plant them.
And the second part is that the rest unobligated funds would go towards the sidewalk contract?
All
Roads
right.
and sidewalk
Yes,
contract?
yes, that's all right, all right.
Can I have a second?
Second. Oh, Bill could
We
do
have
it.
2 seconds, we
It
okay.
was such a good motion, there's 2 seconds.
Good.
All right, so we're gonna do $10,000 of trees.
Do we have to vote on it?
Yep, and I'm just making sure we're clear, and then the
Yep.
rest of it is gonna go to the roads and sidewalks.
Got all that, Wendy?
Yes, so we're not determining an exact amount, which would be perfect.
Which
Yeah.
we will figure it out in the next
Right.
week.
Perfect.
We'll know.
Whatever's left.
What-
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Any further discussion?
So we'll be at 0 unobligated.
We'll be at zero, all the funds will be obligated, so we'll be.
That's correct.
Perfect.
All right, Tom Myers.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Molson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Beaulieu, aye.
Woo-hoo, trees.
Look at that. Trees.
Thank you,
You're like
thank
the
you.
you're like the Bob Ross of the board. Happy trees. Happy trees.
Thank you all. Thank
Can
you,
they be
Colin.
bushes or they gotta be trees?
Trees, and we're going to
beautification
get
could be-
beautiful native trees.
We're oxygenating town.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Sequestering carbon.
There you go. All right. The next is just a discussion of the town manager and select board goals, a recap after the meeting that we had a couple months back. I know it's all deeply in your minds.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, look at, got it.
So, this looks like the
I guess
old
what I'm
one.
looking, no, it's been updated, I took out,
Oh.
you'll see this, it's all different. I took out the stuff that was in my last evaluation form.
Got it.
Populated it with the stuff that we discussed from the minutes of the workshop in July, and it's subject to additions, edits, amendments. It's not a final document, it's there for your discussion and for you to add to, if you like.
I was looking for, though.
Wendy, we don't mind if you want to leave.
Yeah,
We
I
won't be
forgot,
offended.
I forgot to tell
Is that
you.
in here?
So I was looking,
It was in
though.
the packet.
Okay, good night, thank you.
I see it.
I mean, some of these things probably have to.
I'm
be
looking
voted
at the
on.
meeting minutes from the 29th.
Okay. Okay, so it's, the priority goals, though. So most of the stuff in the first section is just lightly edited, right, from year over year.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, it's, some of the stuff came directly out of
Yeah, yeah.
what was discussed at the workshop.
And then,
And then the priority goals are basically their
water.
subheads, which need to be filled in.
Filled
with-
in,
with
yeah, because I
more-
was gonna say,
more
there was like
detail.
specific things within each of these.
So I just need recommendations from you to what you want on, in details. For instance, one of the subheads is cell tower. Okay, what do you
We
want
had
me to focus
decided
on
we
in cell
were,
tower?
we were murdering cell tower for for web, with the web idea, right?
Well, I think we've got to finalize a communication solution, right, which will be it could be a hybrid of a tower and some type of fixed wireless network. But we've got to just work through that.
Is Angela working with you on that?
We haven't met yet, but she did send a follow-up email, so I need to she wants to explain to me who she spoke with, and I need to make sure I just identify that,
Yeah.
I'm in the business, so.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Just,
So, I didn't do anything good? Okay. I would say you can go to the town clerk's office, not tomorrow or Wednesday, but anytime after that, and file a disclosure with the town clerk. She usually has a blank one there. You just fill out what it is you're doing and what the perceived conflict would be. You don't have a conflict because you won't be bidding on any of the work that goes out, but you bring subject matter expertise that will actually help the town.
perfect. So I think we'll look at two things. One, the existing tower structure, there has been a couple of buyout options, so we'll revisit that and look at that just to make sure we're maximizing any potential cash flow. And then two is like how we extend coverage in the downtown area. Right?
Yep.
I think that's a good goal I can help you with.
I do want to be honest that I have a bunch of notes with the specific things here. I just don't have my notebook with me. So I can't bring the level of discussion that I would hope to.
I wasn't anticipating a vote on this tonight. I think it's listed on the agenda as just discussion, so if you want to
Okay,
add,
good.
if you want to add to it and send me your additions, I can send you this in
I just,
spreadsheet format so you could add to it yourself, or you can tell me what you want me to add and where.
I think you're good with the cell tower stuff, I think,
Yeah.
right, from what we just said. Have water,
Yep.
I think we talked about, Beverly Salem Water District,
Well,
Ipswich
yeah,
River
we're-
Watershed.
Yeah, we're working, I'm on the task force for the North Shore Water Resilience Task Force, and they've actually just put me on to one of the major committees looking at the finalization of options for the task force to consider. So I'll be working over the next several months on the short list of recommendations that'll be coming out of that task force. So,
okay. Yeah, because I remember we had a thing that was basically like, we need to make a decision soon about whether or not we're going to continue to pour money into this idea of getting on Salem Beverly, which doesn't ultimately make sense. versus
it-
the MWR, whatever?
So, yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. The task force is, there are conversations between the task force and Salem Beverly and Salem Beverly and MWRA. And there may be a future where Salem Beverly and MWRA partner, and it would potentially save it. Well, there's a lot, it's still being studied, and I'm gonna have to spend the next 8 months looking at all that with the task force to figure out what we're gonna recommend. But there is a possibility that Salem Beverly and MWRA partner in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Maintain some of their own autonomy, but also partner in a way to bring more water into this
So it's like a
region.
daisy chain instead
Yeah.
of a pipeline?
Right, because the pipeline's gonna be a lot more expensive to build.
Got it, okay.
So is kind of the overarching goal then, is it itemized with specifics or just assure quality and capacity of water?
It'll be itemized with specifics.
Okay.
There's a lot going on. We're
Yeah.
spending several $100,000 of studying on it, and the good news is that the lead contractor on it is our lead contractor for Water Solutions, Dewberry. They won the bid to do the contracts for the group, so.
Got it. Okay. Town hall, is that just like more, project manager?
I'm hoping we're gonna start to roll that down. Yeah, we're just trying to manage it out for the next 18 months and then get a new town hall and move in.
We do have, and I think this is a carryover, but I think you said that the trash/compost thing was definitely gonna come to a head because
Well,
of,
it's coming to a head now. An update for that on you is that we've been approached by Black Earth. We've been told, not in writing, but we've been told that the family is probably going to start to wind down operations at Brick End.
yeah. I
And
see.
and we've already been approached by Black Earth for them to provide the composting service to us. We're gonna have to renew the contract with Wheelabrator for disposal of trash, and we're gonna have to, in the next year or so, renew a contract with Casella for hauling. So we're talking to them about reworking that contract, that they would haul our compostables to Black Earth instead.
Where's that?
I believe there's a site in Manchester that we go to, so it's not that much further than
Okay.
what they're doing now. So Tim is working on all that contractual stuff right now. So we can get, partly because we gotta get the pricing, and so we know what, if any, budget impact is gonna be for FY '26.
When is the Casella?
The Casella contract, I think, is technically up in calendar '27, which means in FY '26, so we need to start talking to them about it now.
So would it be best to go and know when you want to connect with Black Earth, or you do an RFP for 3 carriers to do all 3 types of pickup?
At this point, we think it's probably going to be more cost-effective for us to go with Black Earth. Black Earth's pricing is similar to what Brick End Farms was, and they're willing to sign a contract with us. The state law doesn't require us to do an RFP or an IFB for trash contracting, and if we can get the same price or similar from Black Earth, that's probably in our best interest. We know Casella's pricing is higher.
I would also wonder too, and I don't know Black Earth that well, but it would seem like our composting partner, what people liked about Brick Ends was this idea of it was like a community partner as well.
So
And you could get compost back, or they would
Well, so
provide
Black-
compost for the gardens or whatever.
Black Earth has a more robust, because of the way they've operated and grown their business, they've got a more robust kind of give back to the people that, you don't have to, Black Earth does not just work with municipalities. In fact, they started out by working with individuals who want
Right.
to compost. And so they have a very dedicated, if you sign on with us, you get whatever, it's a bag of compost a year or 2 bags of compost a year, whatever it is. So for a municipal collection system, they have a similarly already established proposal on how people can get compost from them once a year.
Okay, that's great, because I think it was,
And it's actually more definitive, because in the last few years, we've had to, at times, because we didn't have a written contract and they didn't want to sign one, we've had to, cajole and, harangue and, call several times to get them to bring some compost, and then it was like, I know.
yeah, and then and then when we did it, it was like scooping it with your own bucket in the back of the town hall. Anyway, okay. I would like to have this conversation again, and I apologize that I bring my notes, but unless people have specific things right now, I'd like to put this on the agenda again when I have notes, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
And I think this was paired with our goals too. Have we had discussions? I'm not looking at anything here, but
That's in my notes, I
Do
don't.
we have goals that we've at least drafted, or?
Nothing's been drafted. We had those conversations, some of the things that came out of that conversation, but we don't have a template for how we track your goals. So,
I do have some of that in my notes that I didn't bring.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if we wanted to do any work ahead, in advance of that, to make it a discussion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the topics here, the general topics are the things that we did talk about at, it was like, the water conversation was this idea of like, which is the direction, we need to pick a direction, especially knowing that we need to get into like long-term, planning and financial planning for that. I think the cell conversation had transitioned into the Wi-Fi conversation. I think the communication, we had talked about the fact that we're bringing on someone that's going to own that.
Yep.
And we just need to make sure that we have a set of clear and communicable and measurable goals for that person. And that would start with you, and then we
you
would.
give them to me, and I'll work with Cindy to have them carried out.
Yeah, and that was stuff that we can revise. Actually, I was looking at from the 2022, 2023. It was like some baselining around the red alert signups and the number of town manager signups, increase subscription to those emails and those alert systems. And then,
She's already also started baselining with information on the website and how people see it and trying to change things and standardize that. So she's already dug into that, because that's really where a lot of her prior experience came from. So you'll be impressed with Cindy's take on that stuff.
I think also we have the burgeoning town paper, like what is the relationship between the towns, the boards?
We had a very nice meeting last week.
My God, don't you love this? So that could just be a separate item, is just sort of a discussion in a future meeting about like what are the specific measurable communication goals.
Yeah.
I think we had talked about with 3A, it was,
We're waiting to see what the state
yeah,
does.
it was sort of a,
We're waiting
like
to see what the court does.
support of the process itself, understanding what comes out of the Supreme Court decision. And to that end, I think, I don't want to talk about it too much because it's not on the agenda, but there was a discussion in the last meeting about decoupling the form-based code from the 3A conversation. We had a meeting with Patrick and with Rosie was there as well, and with the planning board. We didn't get into that conversation as much as we had wanted to.
We have another one scheduled for Thursday morning at 10.
Yeah, there is another one scheduled. It is not because, and I think Rosie can certainly echo the sentiment, the desire to keep them together is not to push any specific agenda, and I think that's what we have to be careful of. It is actually because there's a lot of intricacies in why the form-based code and the 3A end up sort of dovetailing, and the decision to pull them apart is as contentious as the decision to keep them together. And I think we're just trying to work with the planning board and Patrick and Patrick's replacement to sort of understand the best way to do that, because it sort of always just comes back around to like, if this decision comes back that we are going to need to have some sort of 3A zoning, it would behoove us to actually have a form-based 3A proposal that covers that. And so we're still working through that.
So we'll have more to report to this board at the next meeting.
Yeah, what he said.
Communication, I did like that one pager we did with kind of 3 big topics. That would be a good thing to continue to update, or I don't know if it was meant to be a living document to update. You know how we did the one pager, and it was really
We were going to
informative.
send it out, yeah.
I don't know, I mean, it did a good job then. I would love to see that as a kind of recurring, updated document.
Well, I wanted to ask your opinion too. I'd seen that in my town and the town of Manchester, my town where I live, Swampscott, and the town of Manchester and another town had all undertaken some effort to utilize their local cable access channel to like get out the word. Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to discuss it with HWCAM, but I was thinking about maybe having like a sit down and being, asked about various topics at different points and having those be broadcast.
A fireside chat?
I don't know if they have
that's
the
great.
ability to do it fireside, but maybe
I think that's
I
great.
think it's good.
fireside over brandy with slippers on, that'd be great. But
It's
With
very
a puppy in your lap.
yeah, it's very FDR of you. I like this. We'll call you Papa Joe.
you're the one that started with the fireside chat. So I'm just-
All right. If it's the same to everybody, I will keep us moving. Just to recap, the special town meeting vote. If anybody had any post-mortem thoughts about special town meeting, I thought
That's great.
it went well. It was a I can't even talk. Sisyphean task, getting that passed, and now it's passed. I do think it sets us up for, we had a very robust parking lot conversation with some residents after the last meeting. You know, there continues to be this like staggering disbelief around the how much money these things cost. And I don't know, and I agree with people, it's shocking. It's shocking when you see these numbers, it's shocking when you see the inflation. But I think going into some of the conversations ahead of us, specifically around the schools and things like that, I'm really curious if people have ideas of how we can better socialize and better get in front of the fact that, you know, if people come into this believing we could have done it cheaper.
Well, that was 3 years ago.
Right.
And we certainly could have. The ask at that point was $3.4 million. So, yeah, that's how
Yeah.
we could have done it cheaper.
For 10x the project.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
I also try to look for the silver lining in these things, right? So the original project also did not include decarbonization.
Right.
And so I think that we're getting a different project than what we originally asked the taxpayers for. The taxpayers chose, as is their right, to not support an override request to go with the project that we had developed.
It wasn't an override, it was.
It was debt exclusion, but, and I, you know, I respect their vote on that. We pivoted, we identified the things that we thought we needed, and then we tried to identify ways that we could get other things without asking the taxpayers, and that's how the decarbonization project came about. And in some ways, I think that although we won't have all of the project that we asked for before, what we will have will be better quality, because we'll be able to save ourselves some money annually in operating once the project's paid off.
I mean, it is shocking the way that prices have skyrocketed in 4 years. It is absolutely shocking. And of course, hindsight, yes, we could have voted for it then. But you're right, we didn't, and now we just have to deal with what's in front of us. And I know that we're all very grateful that the CPC stepped up and took on the burden, and we're very grateful for that, and we're very grateful that the project is going to get done.
I signed the contract with Campbell Construction today, so we're ready to go. They're gonna have, and that's a good thing, good point for me to let you all know. We're having a kind of a formal project kickoff. I'm hesitant to call it a groundbreaking because we're not really breaking a lot of ground, but we're gonna have a project kickoff on November 20th at 1 p.m. at the town hall. You're all invited if your schedules allow. There'll be representatives from Campbell Construction, from ESG, from DOER that gave us that very nice $500,000 grant for that project, from town staff that'll be managing the project, Senator Tarr, Rep. Kasner. I've asked Cindy to invite our new newspaper. We're hoping that at least some of you would be able to come. And
What time is it? It's on the 20th?
20th, Wednesday, the 20th at 1 p.m. Because they actually start work the next day, so we won't be allowed in the building on the 21st.
Well, that's very exciting.
I hope that you're able to attend. It'd be a lot of fun.
I think you should break the ground with a small shovel, and we'll
Yeah.
hang it on a wall somewhere.
Maybe those little spoons that look like shovels.
Somebody said, well, Bill Garbati, who left now, said, I'll make sure we have a shovel there. I'm like, it's kind of funny that you're going to bring the shovel, because the only new ground being broken is for the elevator, and you don't have anything to do with the elevator. So
Maybe
why
it
you
could be
bring
like
the
a
shovel? But, you know,
bricklaying. You can like spread some mortar and just plop a brick.
If, you know, we can get a couple shovels and pose a picture, that's fine. I think that, you know, but it'll be good to have that imagery to let people know the project is actually finally starting.
That's great.
What we expected project timeline is going to take. They continue to say 12 to 15 months, so I continue to say 15 to 18 months.
Good.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Perfect. All right. The next item, second to last item, is a discussion around supporting our town boards and committees in their work. As everyone here knows, we have had a number of aging spots open on boards and committees. We've had some challenges getting folks into boards and committees. We've had some really disheartening resignations from some committees, and I think there is sort of an underlying feeling that maybe there's not the level of support.
Right.
And I know that we all do the best we can day to day, but I think this is just a discussion of, what can we or should we be doing?
Yeah, I'd like to give a postmortem on the Conservation Commission. It is with great regret that I reiterate that both the chair, Lee McCoy, and the vice chair, Kathy Simons, both resigned. And I had a Zoom meeting with them last week. I wanted to hear their concerns, and I gave it the old rosy try to convince them to stay unsuccessfully. And I felt very badly, and I apologized on behalf of the town. As their liaison, and this is my learning curve here, that I wish that I had reached out to them more formally and said, look, if you need something, let me know, let me see what I can do. Because although I attended the meetings, I let them run the meetings, and they never communicated to me what the multitude of problems were.
Can you explain, and this, I may be exposing myself here, I didn't know what that thing was that they were talking about, where like we had authorized something without asking them. What was that? In the email that they sent,
Resignation email.
yeah, they had said like the board basically went behind their back and authorized something without asking, and I was like, I don't know what's.
Rosie, do you have background?
I don't remember that we spoke
look.
about, I think okay, so if I can be totally transparent.
You're on camera, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so the first thing that they were concerned about is they needed guidance because they were new in their roles, and they looked to our conservation agent. Especially because there were such recent complex issues that were in their wheelhouse. The school athletic fields project, the Bridge Street project. And so what happened was Brian, who was a wonderful conservation agent, had just left. And they didn't have a whole lot of direction. And then we hired a new agent who lasted maybe a year, and they didn't feel that she was knowledgeable in terms of being there for them. She spent a lot of time in Manchester and not as much as needed to be in Hamilton. So one of the other problems was a huge lack of administrative support. Laurie left. But even prior to that, although Laurie certainly was very helpful as much as she could be, they felt that they had to do a lot of file searching themselves and a lot of research themselves. They didn't have anybody to back them up and to provide the sort of the support that they needed. Mm-hmm. And so I had talked to Joe about this, that there was going to be more dedicated admin time. And I talked to them about that we are now, have we finalized a new conservation agent?
So you all voted at the last meeting on the new IMA. We've sent it off to,
Right.
we've sent it off to
Okay.
Manchester to be executed, and they're advertising for a new agent
Okay.
right now.
So-
And
okay.
and Hamilton, just to back up your earlier statement, as far as additional clerical help, we are advertising right now for a part-time, 24 hours a week clerical staff person to support the conservation agent and the new planning director. So, part of this is kind of a result of having to move out of town hall and people being moved around a little bit. At town hall, when the building department and the planning and conservation were all on the same floor, the clerical person that was assigned to planning and inspections was working there and offering some help. And our previous agents, other than the most recent one, had all been very, very good at helping the Conservation Commission stay up on those things. when we moved out and we didn't have Brian anymore, and we spent a period of time with Brian just doing some work as a consultant, but no real body in the office, Virginia Cookson stepped up in a great way and really did a lot of work to help the board, as did Kathy and Lee.
Oh, yes.
I was trying to avoid having the same situation, so we established a new position for a part-time clerical person that will help both the new planning director who's just started and the conservation agent and the conservation committee. We're advertising now. Manchester went through a similar process where they recently hired somebody, so we're hoping to grab some of the candidates, because they had several very good candidates. They chose somebody. We're hoping one of those other candidates might be interested in our position, and Michelle's working on that now. I recognize that there was a lack of support there, and we need to provide it in different layers, because we don't have the ability to hire a full-time agent on our own. And so we're trying to get there, and unfortunately, we're just not
Right.
done it
So I
fast
had a
enough to
couple of
help.
questions, because I think it's important to talk about and get better, right? Lessons learned, so it doesn't
Yeah.
happen again. And you had a chance to meet with them. I mean, I wanted to applaud them for their efforts and thought they were.
Oh,
So, but my question is on they felt under pressure. Is that pressure that they felt they put on themselves to be good, or is it pressure that they felt they were put under by the town in that position?
They did a remarkable job.
Right.
And I think they just felt like they weren't getting support and they weren't getting anywhere. They weren't, so most recently, they felt that there were some issues around the Bridge Street properties.
So yeah,
and-
they say in here, they're like,
Yeah.
it says that the town did not support the commission in carrying out its key responsibilities in enforcing compliance with the Wetland Protection Act
Right.
and the bylaw. And then it says, the town failed to share with us its position regarding the renewal of the Hamilton Wyndham Regional School District's bylaw permit. That's the first thing. No idea what they're talking about. Second thing is, the town failed to support the commission in its effort to enforce compliance with the WPA bylaw when the commission sought to prosecute a serial violator on Bridge Street. No idea what they're talking about. While the other Bridge Street property owners had complied with the same enforcement requirement, this property owner had openly disregarded the order and thereby avoided the expenses involved and subsequently did not pay the fines we levied for noncompliance. We believe the equal application of the law is critically important, and failing to enforce this penalty is unfair to those who comply with the law and reduces our authority. I have no idea what they're talking about.
So I can just give you in a nutshell, and Joe, you can augment as needed. But the first part of that, in terms of, they were very upset that when the school district came for a new NOI permit, at that point, a new wetlands bylaw had been voted in by the town, and there were changed conditions. Nobody from the town, specifically town council, spoke with them about this. And what happened was, town council went to their meeting and told them that they, and it's on video, she strongly advised the Conservation Commission to write a new NOI, a new permit, using the old conditions. And the Conservation Commission was clearly, if you watch the video, very confused by that, because they felt that conditions had changed. The new bylaw was in effect, and even though the project had started, they felt that it was the school district's responsibility now that they let their permit expire. Therefore, they were starting anew in terms of a permit, and that the permit should be issued under the new bylaw. So what happened was, town council came to advise them at a particular meeting. They had no, per their discussion with me, they had no prior knowledge that this was going to occur. They had no ability to understand what was going on. That was one thing they were frustrated about.
Did we direct town
I asked
council?
council to attend that meeting.
Okay. I will say this, we also have Lauren Lynch on video as chair, confirming in one of our meetings that we would never behold them to the new bylaws. We have that on video. That was one of the very specific questions we asked the ConsCom when they brought the updated bylaws. We said, if this goes into effect, will it ever retroactively affect the fields? And she said, no, there's an understanding that we will respect the original bylaws in the dealings with the school.
However, if you have a situation where where a permit expires.
Expires, yes.
So that was the issue, the
Yeah.
permit had expired, therefore.
We can argue that
Right,
point,
I just-
Rose, but I'm not going to agree with that aspect of it, but I understand their position, but we had said, we're not going to let it affect the field. However you want to look at the fine print, but we weren't going to.
conditions had changed,
But they didn't come
though.
back to us and say, hey, we're not going to vote tonight, let's table the vote until we go back to the select board. I mean, nobody forced them to make the vote.
Well,
Somebody made a recommendation, they made a vote. So I would say, if they're not comfortable making a vote, we need to teach our committees that they don't make the vote if you're not comfortable making the vote.
Okay, but
Right.
they felt very pressured.
I'm saying that, but the pressure, that's my question, that's my original question. Who's pressuring them? We were not pressuring them to make the vote, we were pressuring them to make a decision. If they couldn't make a decision, then they should come back to us with, like, that's what I'm saying. How can we educate our boards and committees so they don't feel pressured to make a decision, not ready to make a
I
decision?
agree with you. I agree
Right.
with you. They should have taken it under
Right.
advisement or decided they were going to take a vote. They were caught by surprise. So, and
I get
I'm
that,
not.
but I don't feel like we were putting pressure on them. Like, I wasn't.
No,
Right,
I'm
exactly,
not
right,
saying you
right.
were.
So I just want to make, how do we do a better job so in the future?
Okay.
People don't
so,
say that's my
so,
question,
So
right.
communication,
Right.
if there's an issue that's going to come up that's of importance and it involves a particular board or committee, they should be informed of that so that they can understand what's going on. That's all I'm saying. And then the next issue was about Bridge Street. So this person in one of the properties ignored the order to,
I
the
remember that, yeah.
enforcement order. They refused to comply, so the chair, Lee McCoy, issued citations. For every day they didn't comply, it was an X dollar fine. Anyhow, all the other properties complied with the erosion control specialist, and they all hired one. And this particular person just said, no, I'm not going to. So the fines got up to somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000. And then they finally complied. And Lee said, well, you still owe these fines. And so he wanted to make it a criminal complaint because that was ostensibly the next step in
Right.
how to do that. So the police department decided that they were not going to file a criminal complaint because what happens is oftentimes, and I do some criminal consulting work in the court system, and so what happens is, yes, it is possible that a judge would say, okay, so you're in compliance, yes, you're asking us to waive the fines, and yes, we will. And so what was the underlying goal is to make this owner accountable for the fines that he owed. And so I asked Joe to ask town council about, well, could it be put on, could it be a lien on the property, or could there be some restriction on a building permit? And our building inspector said that yes, he could refuse to issue a building permit, and yes, it could also be a lien on the property, so the deed couldn't pass. But anyhow, I think, and I did explain this to Lee, and I think at this point, he and Kathy were so up to here with feeling overwhelmed that they felt that it was a cop-out, or maybe I shouldn't use that word, but it wasn't the route that they wanted to take. And I said, sometimes there isn't just one road to take to achieve your goal. You could do it different ways. At that point, he just felt, both of them felt so unsupported by the town, and that's where the town
Right,
comes in.
right, and it all sounds like it's all different organizations.
Right, I was like, when I heard the town,
the
I'm like,
pol-
what? I
yeah.
don't even know what we're
It's the
talking about.
police,
Well,
it's
the
our,
police department, and as I said.
but that's our Chief Stevens always tells us, his first goal is to educate, not
Right.
to fine. Like he always says it, my first goal is to
Right.
educate people, not to send a fine, but to educate and
Right,
promote,
but this
right? So
guy
that's-
was
yeah.
warned a gazillion times. And so,
but that's- yeah.
the bottom line is, I would have intervened, not sort of politically intervene, not physically intervene, but I would have talked to him more about other avenues to get the same solution. The problem was he felt that his decision was not supported, and it was only after I found out everything and I tried to talk with him. Anyhow, the bottom line is, I think as a liaison, we are all liaisons to different boards and committees, and if we, and I have learned this, be more interactive with our boards and committees and encourage them to talk to us about problems that they're having, that's one thing.
I agree, like, there should be a way to, like, if they feel like have a problem, I don't know who to go to, who do they go to, right? So maybe it's, I mean, once again, I don't want to make more meetings, but maybe there's more, our joint meetings, some of the most productive meetings I think we have. Maybe we should make sure we have a joint meeting with every single, committee twice a year, once a year, twice, whatever it is, because I think those are productive, right? Those are productive meetings.
Right.
Maybe allows them to share their stories that we can help out with. Because like you said, if we don't know about it, we read about it for the first time in a letter and we can't, it's too late to react to it.
Exactly, and I just really,
I mean, it sounds like we obviously didn't have a strong Concom position because it was a revolving door for a little bit, and so they probably didn't have the right person to go to. But I mean, once again, like, defend ourselves, like, we were very, like, that conservation rewrite. I mean, we gave that a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of support, and we helped them, quote unquote, do that in a very condensed period of time because it was important to them, it was important to us. So I think there were some positive things that happened, and there were, like I said, there's a lot of things that went through. There was all the different, there's a lot of different projects, and they did a good job, but.
yeah.
So, but I feel like we were supportive, but maybe we didn't know about stuff that was hard to be. But we also aren't going to agree with everything. So I also want to figure out, there's one thing about supporting, and another thing that we don't always agree with every other board and committee. So how do we resolve? Because I think those are problems we have sometimes too in our towns, that we think we have different opinions. So how do we all, not talking specific about Concom, but if we don't agree, we also want people to be disenfranchised because we don't agree. So how do we?
That's right,
Yeah.
we empower them to make decisions, so we can't second guess what they're doing. I don't know.
We don't all have to agree, but that's why it's.
Couple of things. One, on the agenda item, I think everything you guys said is right on. I think as liaisons, we should all take this, incident and speak to the chairs of all of the groups that we're liaisons and see, if there are anything bubble up. Just take a pulse of the situation. But maybe we need a formal feedback loop from chairs of all committees and boards to the select board, where there is a
Right, I
a
agree.
process flow for a way for them to sense stuff. Hey, this is bubbling, this is happening, so we can constantly, get feedback and we can respond to it as needed. Meetings would be great, but it might be a lot. I think on some of the bigger ones with some of the hotter topics, we definitely should be meeting with Conscom and other groups with a meeting. But did we talk also once about, this might be a lot, is how do we get, maybe a paper will help too, but some type of update on all boards and committees where they feed in, and there's something that goes out that has a blurb for every board and committee of what's going on in the group, and it's kind of published on a.
Other than the annual report, there's the requirement to do the annual report, and Lori's done that in the past, and Cindy will take care of that.
Unless you look at reading every meeting minutes from every.
You could do that. I'm just talking
Okay.
more of an update thing that just kind of like each chair of each board committee kind of sends a couple of bullets and they get aggregated and there's a
But
place
also,
people.
but
we
isn't
could-
that our job, though? I mean, I try to reach out to all my,
We do, and we give our updates, and then
Committees.
it gets into minutes, and then they get buried into minutes that are approved in consents, and then
Yeah.
it's just there's not a way to resource it and
Yeah.
look at it. So things
Yeah.
kind of just age and then bubble, and then we get resignations. Maybe it's overreacting, but
well,
it would be nice to have.
yeah, I mean, I think, so, I just think of having that one-on-one communication and, learning lesson for me. I felt terrible that I felt terrible about the situation. I'm not going to say that I was personally responsible for it, but I felt terrible about the situation. And, I don't think the town is irresponsible. I just think it was a comedy of terrible, perfect storm events that just culminated in these resignations.
I think there's also, and I know you like silver linings, but I like black satin ones.
Okay.
I just think it's a hard time to be on boards right now. And I think one of the things I've heard from people is all roads lead to something contentious in unexpected ways right now. I mean, somebody was joking the other day, like I joined the ZBA because I thought I was going to like approve people's decks, and then 133 came through and there was this huge pressure to do this. And I think with the CONSCOM, and I think there's something we have to sort of acknowledge there and like work through, which is, you know, everything feels political, whether it is or isn't right now. I think the Bridge Street thing, I mean, I remember when I got that email, my first reaction was because somebody else had said something to me randomly at Crosby's about how like we were pro-development because of our lack of engagement on Bridge Street. And I was like, what? I was like, that's not true at all. Like that was private land that was sold and that went through multiple boards and committees. But that's the way it was sort of wielded, right? Is that it was a political decision not to be supportive. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think people understand like how difficult it is right now to keep track of everything that's going through. And then, you know, it is volunteers and it is a matter of like, you know, a million well-intended decisions lead to something that ends up here. I mean, I think to give a little bit of grace even to Eric, and you know, somebody said when the permit expired, like that was our opportunity. Somebody said that was our opportunity to finally thwart the Fields project because of a clerical error. And I was like, well, that in of itself is such a gross conversation that people are waiting for them to miss this so that they can ruin the Fields project. And I was like, that's such dangerous thinking. And then for people to say, and the reason that the town defended them is because they're pushing the Fields projects. And I'm like, the reason the town is supporting is because the voters voted for it. And we're trying to keep this moving forward. But I do think it is really difficult. I mean, the HEIC had very similar things when they came to us and said that we should say no to the turf because they are a committee that said it shouldn't happen. And I got very specific feedback from them that, you know, we didn't listen, we didn't respect them, we didn't support the decision that they had given to us.
So I go back to like, because we don't agree doesn't mean people should.
And that's the challenge, is it's like, I completely understand. And, you know, I've said this before, I don't necessarily support turf myself. But at that point in the process, and after what we had been through, I couldn't support us using anything to thwart where we had gotten. And that's really painful. It's painful to see something that I don't even agree with happen. But you know, and I just say that because I feel like I'm getting this feedback from a lot of people. HEIC has brought it up. The Human Rights Commission has come to me about these same feelings, that everything they do is, you know, contentious or litigious or, you know, all these things. ZBA felt this way when 133 came through. The planning board, I know Marnie feels this way. You know, it's like, but I'm like, it's because, to your point, just because we don't agree with you, how can we support you anyway, even if we are on opposite sides of those things?
No, yeah, it's
And
important.
you have the right to make those decisions because you have been appointed
Yeah.
to these committees. And I'm not saying in terms of the new permit application is right or wrong. They just felt that they didn't have the opportunity to make a decision. They felt very
Agreed, yeah.
pressured. And granted, to your point, they could have said, you know, in hindsight, right? They could have, neither all these people on Zoom and in the audience and town council is telling them her opinion, they felt very pressured, and I can appreciate that. Whether you agree one side or the other, they should have been given the opportunity to make a decision based on their best process.
Yep. No, I agree. And I wish I knew the answer because I do feel like it's such a theme right now that boards are saying, why didn't y'all, or why didn't this? And I'm like,
So I think I will reach out to all the committees that I'm liaison for. That'll be my sort of mea culpa. I want you to know if you're having problems, reach out to me, and I can't say I can solve all your problems, but I can try to help find solutions.
I mean, yes, right, that was the original concept of having
Liaisons.
Liaisons,
And you're
yeah.
probably the best liaison of
And
the
I
group.
go to all the meetings
I
and
feel
I-
bad that it happened because it's like you're the one who goes to every meeting, makes no talk to people.
Right.
So I understand and I feel the fact that you're like, but I don't think there's anything that you could have done differently. So I think it's just, it's like I said, it's a result of of the,
Just a comedy
we're
of
going through a lot.
errors,
I mean,
yeah.
like I said, I give them a lot of credit. There's a lot of projects they worked really hard on over the last
Yeah.
year.
I mean,
Yeah.
And they did a good job, so.
and they're lovely. I mean, Kathy is I mean, I just don't know Lee as well, but like Kathy is lovely.
Yeah.
And they've, and yeah,
great.
and Jack, like they've just done so much, and I feel bad that they feel like we haven't been able to support them in the manner that they needed to be supported,
Yeah,
but.
yeah. And you know, I feel badly because I was right there. and
No, but I
nobody
mean, again, I think,
said anything. Oh, I just
Oh, it's like
didn't know.
Don't think it's, yeah.
all right, well,
So I think, yeah, the feedback loop, right? So what Bill wants to do is like, how do, besides, like, what other feedback loop can we give them? And it's like, I don't, you know.
I don't know if it's an email or right to
When you need to
the,
sign.
to Joe or somewhere where we send out a communication that says that in an effort to continue communications both ways, here's a feedback loop if you feel like, things are.
Reach out to your
Yeah.
select
Yeah.
person
Right, yeah.
and reach out to
Yeah.
Joe so that we
Well, maybe
can.
they feel they can't speak to the liaison for some reason. I don't know, maybe they're not going. No, it could happen. in 9 years.
Rose,
But-
Rosie's
but-
so
but-
scary.
But to Bill's point,
It's a
like,
third
reach out to
path.
both,
Yeah.
give them the option of both, you or me.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
First and foremost,
there may be times that I feel they can't reach out to me. I
Right.
like you, Rosie, I'm very sorry to see them leave, and very sorry if in any way anything I did led to their decision, because I thought they were both very, very good at what they were doing, and they were a help to the town, and I liked working with both of them individually. If something that I did was misconstrued as unsupportive, I apologize. That's not what I wanted at all.
I don't think it was any one person. I think it was just the whole system they found unsupportive. And it is very unfortunate. I deeply regret that they have both resigned, but they have both made their decision, and so
So we
we
take
have
this
to move
opportunity.
forward.
One,
So
two,
we
or
take,
three
so,
people now.
so if we take this opportunity to get
I
better,
think-
are there
I
other
have to double check. I
boards
feel
and-
like we might have 4 there, because we had 2, I think we had 6 out of 7. So I think we still have 4 there, which
They
means
still
we.
have a quorum.
Which means we have a quorum. They can continue to meet while we look for 3 more now.
Is there something we should do to help support the 4 during this transitional period? while we
You know,
try to-
so we're going through transition in staff-wise too, right? And our new planning and land use director, Mark Connors, has some experience overseeing and working with conservation in his previous stop in Stratham, New Hampshire, and I'm hoping that will lend itself here.
Well, New Hampshire, that's a big conservation state.
Well, that was my question, is like, what other boards, committees are feeling a lot of pressure and are under a lot of pressure right now? Maybe we can help out those. So besides them, like, lesson learned, like, what other, you mentioned some that you're hearing
Yeah.
complaints about, but currently, right now, what's our current state? Do we have any sort of boards that are,
Do we have like an email distribution list to the chairs of every board and committee so that we could just,
I probably need
Send
to
a communication?
I probably need to reestablish it, because the last time we did that was probably more than a year ago, and some of those chairs have changed, so. But I can put together an email chain.
I mean, that might be a good first step, is to send an
Just
email
reach
to
out,
all
yeah.
boards and chairs and just say like,
hey, if you feel.
acknowledge of the environment and what's going on and what
we're
we're
here
trying to do,
support,
but
utilize your liaison and maybe
And-
we offer
Yeah,
up.
we can
That's
put
great.
the
And
list of
remind-
liaisons
Yeah, put the
in
list of
there.
liaisons.
And then all of us should check in with
I
the
haven't-
chairs of
yeah.
our, of
I
our
could do a better
committees and
job
boards
doing
and
that,
just say,
so.
hey,
Yeah, I can do a better
Oh,
job
all
too.
right. No, you do a great job.
All right.
I think it's a good idea.
In the interest of time and dinner, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Second, Tom Myers.
Tom Myers, aye.
William Olson, aye.
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Caroline Boyu, aye.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Buddy.